Good morning. We are on Yoma Daf Base. I'm at Base 2B, and we are learning about the obligation for the Kohen Gadol, who's going to do the avodah, the service in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur. That the Kohen Gadol needed to be separated, needed to be brought into the Beis Hamikdash and live there for 7 days as a preparation. And we learned that from the Miluim, from when the inauguration of the Mishkan, where Aaron and the Kohen and his sons were separated and brought into the Mishkan to live for 7 days, and as the pasuk says over there, and the Gemara brought at the beginning of the Masechta, Ka'asher asa b'yom hazeh, just as you have done on this day, tziva Hashem lasos, as Hashem commanded to do, l'chaper aleichem, to atone for you. And the Brisa said that tziva lasos, Hashem commanded to do, is teaches that by the para aduma, by the red heifer, the Kohen would have to separate. And over here, the l'chaper aleichem, atone for you, it teaches that on Yom Kippur, the Kohen needs to separate. And the Gemara said, how do you know it's Yom Kippur? Maybe it's something else. And the Gemara said that, well, it needs to be a single day, and it needs to be something that is there to atone, as the Gemara is going to say, and it's coming, and it's something the Gemara said that doesn't have kedusha days beforehand. It's a single day that doesn't have kedusha beforehand. The Gemara says, well, why shouldn't it have kedusha beforehand? Because it's similar. Well, actually, isn't it a kal v'chomer? And that's what we're up to. Fourth to last line, second word in the line. V'lav kal v'chomer. And isn't it a kal v'chomer? If you tell me that something that is an independent day of kedusha needs 7 days of preparation, for sure something that is a day of kedusha that also has kedusha days beforehand, that it would need a separation beforehand. Hashta davar she'ein kedusha l'fanav. If it's true, now we said that something that is not kadosh, there's nothing kedusha beforehand. But Parisha, you need to separate in order to prepare for that 1 day of kedusha. Something that does have kedusha before it, such as Shmini Atzeres, the 8th day of Sukkot, which is a new and independent yantiv. Nevertheless, it has kedusha beforehand, and so then for sure it should have the 7 days of kedusha beforehand. Meaning Sukkot, the Kohen is separated for the service of Shmini Atzeres. L'kol shekain, isn't surely they should need to separate. So the Gemara says, Amar Ramesharshe lei now hazeksiv kazeh. It says, as you have done on this day, so shall you do. Kasher asa bayim hazeh, so shall you do. Kazeh, it has to be like this, and so it has to be similar. It's true that in logic you say, well, if there is no kedusha beforehand, then for sure days that a single kadosh day that has kedusha beforehand should separate. Logically, it's a nice idea, but the Torah says, kazeh, like this, so shall you do. That when it is kadosh like today, meaning it has to be similar to the inauguration of the Mishkan. So that's the first source that the Gemara brings. The Gemara says, Ravashi Ama Mi'ika Midi, the Ikar Regale Bayi Prisha Tafel the day Bayi Prisha. Can it be that the main Yantiv does not need a separation, meaning Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeres, which is like the addendum to the Yantiv, does need that the Kohen separate for the service of Shmini Atzeres? So that's his reason that he says, no, you can't say that it's Shmini Atzeres, because it can't be that Sukkot itself you don't have to separate for because it's 7 days, and we only see that for a single day you have to separate 7 days. So for Sukkot you don't have to separate, but Shmini Atzeres, the 8th day of Sukkot, which is the additional independent yontiv, but it's addendum, it's added to Sukkot, that does need Bayi Prisha. And the Gemara says, and even if you're going to tell me, well, actually the 8th day is its own independent yontiv, this is only true in regards to the 6 halachic matters of Pazar Kashav. We're now at the top of of 3 A, Gimel and Aleph, and Pizar Kashav is unclear what those 6 things are. I'm going to go quickly just with Rashi, and then point out that there are different interpretations of this. Rashi says pay, that it has its own pious, its own lottery as to who does which service, and Zman, and it has its own Shehechiyanu when you make Kiddush, when you do the mitzvahs of the day, and Regel B'fnei Atzmai, Reish, Regel B'fnei Atzmai, that it has its own name, and Kuf, Karban, it has its own Karban, whereas the rest of the days of Sukkot, there are many different rams and bulls brought for the Musaf. On Shmini Atzeres, it's 1 bull and 1 ram. And Shin, Shir La'atzma has its own song in the Beis HaMikdash. And Beis, Bracha La'atzma, it has its own bracha in a bracha for the king. So those are 6 matters within which Rashi, on which there's a separate day for Shmini Atzeres. It has its own concept, its own halacha, and nevertheless, it's even though that it is its own independent yontif for these 6 matters, it's not true for other things such as aval inyan tashlumin derishon. In regards to tashlumin, if somebody was not able to bring the carbon chagiga, the carbon that he has to bring on the first day of Yantiv, he can bring it including on the 8th day of Yantiv. So you see it's still a part of Sukkot because he can make a tashlumin, a makeup date for the first day of Yantiv. So you see it's still a part of Sukkot. Tanan, as we learned, Mishal Echag B'Yom Harishan. Somebody who did not bring the Yantiv, the chagiga on the first day of Yantiv. Now Shal Chag of Sukkot, he can bring it on any of the days of Yantiv, and even on the last day of Chag. So he says, Shmini Atzeres is still in some way a part of Sukkot. So it can't be that this additional date to Sukkot needs the Kohen to be separated for its service 7 days beforehand, but Sukkot, the main part of Sukkot, does not need. If you want. Okay, so the Gemara says on the 4th line of 3a, Gimel Amid Aleph, Ve'imatzeres, maybe this is on Shavuos. That's when 7 days in advance the Kohen needs to separate. And why would we say Shavuos? The Prisha Shiva Liyamecharu, because Shavuos is a single day in Eretz Yisrael. In Minatorah, it's a single day. And so for the 7 days beforehand, you'd have to separate for a single day. Well, actually, there's another distinction. The Miluim, the inauguration of the Mishkan, had a service of a single bull and a single ram. And Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol brings a single bull and a single ram. And so therefore, it makes sense that they are compared. Whereas on Shavuos, Nafuki Atzeres, the Shnei Elim Ninu, that together with the 2 breads that are made of wheat that are brought at the end of the counting of the Omer from the barley offering. Now the wheat offering is brought on Shavuos, and together with its 2 breads of the wheat offering also comes 2 rams. And so it's different. We want to compare something that's very much alike, and even though that it is a single day of Yantif, like the single day of inauguration, however, Yom Kippur is more alike because it also has the same type of carbon, the same dimensions that you would of the carbon, a single bull and a single ram. Zangmar says, well, that would be fine if Yom Kippur indeed has only a single ram, like you say. However, according to the opinion that says that it's 2 rams, what would you say? And what is that opinion? So in the Torah, in the mitzvah of Yom Kippur, in Parshas Acharei Mos, where the Torah enumerates how to come, this is how Aaron shall come into the Holy of Holies. So it specifies the avodah service, and it says that there will be 2 goats and a single ram. That single ram is mentioned in as a part of the service, as a part of the Yom Kippur Avodah. In Parshas Pinchas, the Torah enumerates each Yantiv's Musaf carbon. And it starts with Shabbos, and then it goes through every Yantiv what the Musaf is. And for Yom Kippur, it mentions a single ram. So the Braise is going to have a machlokes of whether the single ram mentioned by the Musaf, which is in what's the Gemara is going to call Chumash HaPikudim, the Chumash of the numbers, meaning Bamidbar, in the fourth book. Is that the same as the as what's enumerated that the single ram in Parshas Acharimos? The Tana we looked, Rabbi says Ayel Echadu. It's all one ram. Ha'amar kan hu ha'amar b'chamesh ha'pikudim. The one that said over here in the service of the Avodas Yom Kippurim, in the service of Yom Kippur, is also the same one mentioned in regards to the Musaf. One ram, and it's mentioned in both places. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, however, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon says no, it's two rams. There's one here and there's one there. The one is a part of the service of the Yom Kippur Avodah, and one is a part of the Musaf. Echad Amar Kan. One is said over here, meaning in Parshas Acharimos, where it says the avodah, the service that Aaron would have to do in order to enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And one that it's in Bamidbar in Pinchas, where it mentions all of the musafin, the musaf of every day. So says still, even if you're going to say that there are two, according to Rabbi Eliezer Shimon, Hasam Chad L'Cheves Yev Chad L'Musafin, still they are two different parts. One is a Yom Kippur offering, and one is a Musaf offering. Whereas on Shavuos, they're both a part of the Yom Kippur of the day's offering. As it mentioned, that together with the two breads of the wheat offering come two rams, and so therefore the two rams of Shavuos, of Atzeres, of Shavuos, are more dissimilar than the Yom Kippur one. Because Yom Kippur, even if you say that there are two rams, however, the one is for the daily avodah, for the avodah of that day, of the special avodah of Yom Kippur, and that is very much similar like the Mishkan. Even though that for the Musaf there's another ram, but that's not a part of the Yontif day's service, meaning the specialty of that day, and therefore it's more like the Mishkan, the inauguration of the Mishkan. So it would therefore be a better comparison to say that just like by the inauguration, 7 days in advance the Kohen was separated, so to over here, 7 days in advance the Kohen Gadol is separated. Fine. So we're going to say, okay, so we're not going to say that it's Shavuos, but what about Rosh Hashanah? Ve'ema Rosh Hashanah. Maybe Rosh Hashanah being a single day midoraisa has 7 days in advance where the Kohen has to be separated for the avodah of Rosh Hashanah. The Prisha Shivali Amecharu. It's a separation of 7 days for the avodah of 1 day. Amar Rabbi Abba Udanim Parva Ayel Shaloi Mi Parva Ayel Shaloi. Well, actually, we're going to compare. Yom Kippur is more comparable because yes, it's true that there's a single bull and a single ram on Rosh Hashanah, just like a single bull and a single ram on the inauguration. However, Yom Kippur is more alike, more similar to the inauguration, because on Yom Kippur, the bull and the ram have to belong to the Kohen Gadol himself. It has to come out of his personal funds. Whereas on Rosh Hashanah, it comes from a communal fund. And at the inauguration also, it had to come from the Kohen Gadol's fund, from the Kohen's fund. So it makes sense that that it's more alike and more comparable. That Yom Kippur, where it's a single day, and it's the service of the Kohen where he's going to bring just a single bull and a single ram, and the single bull and single ram have to belong to the Kohen Gadol, that he would separate 7 days, because that's very much alike the Mishkan, and the inauguration of the Mishkan, where the Kohen would bring his own personal bull and ram as a avodah. La'afuke Atzeres Rosh Hashanah, and that is different than Rosh Hashanah. And it's different than Rosh Hashanah, and even different than Shavuos, where both the Tzibur Ninu, where they are communal offerings. So Gemara says that's great if it's true that the Kohen has to bring his own offering. If when the Torah said, "Kach lecha," you shall take for yourself a calf, and by the miluim, by the inauguration, and when it says you shall that the Bezosia of Aaron now has to come, Par ben Bakar, a bull and a ram, that where it says Asher Lo, that which is his. So we could say, okay, so that it actually has to come from his own funds. But that's only true if that's true. Now we go to Gimel Amid Beis. Vasei Lacha, and similarly we would have by the making of the silver trumpets that it says make for yourself, Mishalacha, that it means you should make it out of your own funds. However, if we follow the opinion that no, those two also came from the communal fund, so that distinction of by the inauguration and by the Mishkan of the Mishkan and by Yom Kippur, the Kohen has to bring these of his own funds. Well, maybe that's not even true. The Tanya, where do we have this machlokas of whether or not it has to come of his own funds? The Tanya we learned, Kach lecha. It says he shall take for himself, which is the bull and ram for the inauguration. Mishalacha of your own funds. Va'asei lecha. You should make the silver trumpets. Mishalacha of your own funds. V'yikru elecha shemen zayizach. But taking the oil for the illumination of the Mishkan of the menorah, Mishal Tzibur, because it says, and they shall take v'yikru plural, and you all shall take for yourself. So that's from the community. Divrei Rabbi Yashia, that's Rabbi Yashia's opinion. Whereas Rabbi Yonasan says, Bein kach lecha, bein v'yikru elecha, whether it says take for yourself or you all shall take, Mishal Tzibur, it's always of the community. That these karbanos, these avodas are going to come from communal funds. So why then does the Torah say take for yourself? Kiviyachon, if we could say it this way, we would, but we don't want to say this. Hashem says to Aaron, I'm upset with Bnei Yisrael. I want yours more than I want from them. I don't really want their contribution. But nevertheless, it's a communal service, so it has to come from the community. Abba Chanan Omer Meshum Rabbi Lazar. Abba Chanan says in the name of Rabbi Lazar, Kasav Echad Omer va'asisa lacha aron eitz. One pasuk says, and you shall make for yourself an ark of wood. And another pasuk says, and you will make for yourself, and they will make an ark made out of shittim wood. Okay, so which one is it? They will make or you will make? When Bnei Yisrael are living up to the will of Hashem, meaning they're living in relation and connection with the mitzvah and the way Hashem wants us to live. So therefore it counts as we make the ark. We are the holders of the Torah. But when it is, unfortunately, that Bnei Yisrael does not follow in the ways of Hashem and they no longer consider the holders of the Torah, so it can't be they are the ark. They cannot be the makers of the ark, and so it says, make for yourself, that it is only for you, that the ark is considered only you made it. Gemara says that this is only machlokes, only in regards to generally when it says take for yourself or make for yourself. Kichas de alma, where is that? Kach lecha samit. By the making of the spices, and it says make for yourself, take for yourself the spices. So asiyas de alma, or when it says make for yourself, asay lecha shtei chatzotzos kesef, make for yourself 2 silver trumpets. Aval hanech, but over here, perushika mafarish, over the mishalachahu. Here it's clear that it has to be that the Kohen had to make it of himself. Whereas here, by the inauguration and by Yom Kippur. And why is that? Mechti. So let's analyze this. It says, Ksiv, says, Va'el b'nei Yisrael tadaber lemo. And it says, by the inauguration, and to the children of Israel you shall say, Kechusi erizim, you all shall take a goat, lachatas, for a chatas offering. And then it says specifically, Vayomer el Aaron kach lecha egel ben bakar, and tell Aaron, take for yourself a calf, the son of cattle. Lachatas as a sin offering. Lamali. Why, if it's all from the communal fund, why would it say, and tell Aaron, take for yourself? Either way, it's a communal fund. And we already said they shall take. So it should say, Aaron, Egel ben bakar, and for Aaron, a calf, the son of a bakar, of a cattle. Why does it say specifically, kach lecha? After it said to Bnei Yisrael, they shall take. Shema mina kach lecha mishalecha. So we see that by the inauguration, it specifically wants that Aaron take it for himself. And Yom Kippur is compared to that too, because Yom Kippur has the same idea. By Yom Kippurim, Mechti, it says, Ksiv b'zois yav Aaron el HaKodesh. With this, Aaron will come to the Kodesh. B'par ben bakar, with the bull achatos. Ume'es adas b'nei Yisrael, and then it says, and of the children of Yisrael, Yikach shall take shnei seirim l'chatas, 2 goats for achatas. So it says that you will take from Bnei Yisrael 2 goats. V'hikr v'spar achatas asher loy, and then it says, and he will bring the bull of atonement, the chatas bull, asher loy, which is to him. So that's distinguishing it from the goats, which are from Bnei Yisrael. Again, after the Torah already said that you will take from Bnei Yisrael, the Torah says, and his bull, to tell you that it is his, it belongs to him. This it says that it is his, to tell you that it must come from his own personal funds. And that's a good comparison. That we have the korban of Yom Kippur, which is a bull and a single bull and a single ram, that comes specifically from the Kohen Gadol, and therefore it is a good comparison that where the Torah says, and Torah said by the inauguration of the Mishkan, by the Miluyim, that Aaron and his children will live in the Mishkan for 7 days in preparation for the bringing of their own personal korban as an inauguration. So too on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol is going to be separated for 7 days for the inauguration. As a pasuk says over there, as you have done on this day, so shall you do for the atonement, l'chaper. And so that l'chaper means for Yom Kippur. So that's the Gemara today. So Ravashi says, "Danim par lachatas va'ayla oila, mi par lachatas va'ayla oila." He has another distinction between Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah, and he says, well, if you look at, it's true that they also have a single bull and a single ram, but what is the what type of korban is it? In regards to the inauguration and in regards to Yom Kippur, they are both a bull for chatas, so an atonement offering, and the ayil, the ram, is la'oila, is for an ascent offering. So therefore, we're going to compare it to mipar lachatas va'ayil, the inauguration as well has that. La'afuke Rosh Hashanah va'atzeres, whereas Rosh Hashanah and Shavuos, they're tavayu oilisninu. Both the bull and the ram are ascent offerings, and so that's another distinction that makes it different. Ravina has another distinction. Both the inauguration and Yom Kippur, the service is done by the Kohen Gadol, whereas La'afuke Kulu Kishyasim, whereas opposed to all the other things you asked from Pesach and Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah and Shmini Atzeres and Sukkot, there's no obligation for the Kohen Gadol to do it, the high priest. It could be any Kohen. The Lav Avodah by Kohen Gadol Ninu. So that's another distinction why the comparison to Yom Kippur, and to say that Yom Kippur is where the Torah is saying that just as you've done today, so too you will do to atone for them. It means for Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol would be separated 7 days in advance. Ve'ikad Amri, now some say that Ravina's distinction is this. Amar Ravina, danan avodah techila ma'avodah techila. La'fukehani lav techila ninu. We compare an inaugural service from an inaugural service as opposed to just a general service. And all the other things are general, whereas Yom Kippur and the inauguration of the Mishkan are inaugural. Now we understand the inauguration of the Mishkan is inaugural. It is the first time that Aaron and his children are coming in to do the service, so they would be separated for 7 days. But where do you have another inaugural service? Elaim at Chila B'Kohen Gadol is the first time that Kohen Gadol is doing the service on Yom Kippur. Haina Kamaisa. Well, that's the first thing that he said, that this one is by Kohen Gadol. Ella Avoida Techila B'Makim Me'Avoida Techila B'Makim. The inauguration of the Mishkan was the first time they did the service in the Mishkan, in the holy chamber, and on Yom Kippur is the first time you do the service in the Holy of Holies, in the Kodesh HaKodeshim. So that space, Yom Kippur is the first avodah there, and the only avodah there, and so the inaugural service, or the only service in the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies, is going to be compared to the inaugural service, the first time you're doing the service in the Kodesh, in the Beis HaMikdash itself. Kiyasa Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Dimi came, he actually came back from Eretz Yisrael. We know that Rav Dimi would travel from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel and back to between the academies, and bringing the teachings of each to the other. So when he came to Bavel, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that he taught Mas Nechada, that he only said one thing is compared, and that you have to separate for 7 days. That again, the pasuk says, and this is the Gemara we saw on Beis Amud Aleph on 2a, where it says by the inauguration, where Aaron was separated with his children and living for 7 days in the Mishkan, in the Beis HaMikdash. It says, "Ka'asher asa b'yom hazeh," as you've done in this day, Tziva Hashem Lasa, Hashem commanded to do lechaper aleichem, to atone for you. And the Gemara said, or in the Brisa that we had earlier, that there are two teachings. Lasas, to do, that teaches you by the para aduma, by the red heifer, that the Kohen in advance would have to be separated for 7 days. And lechaper aleichem, that's to tell you that Yom Kippur, 7 days in advance, the Kohen Gadol has to be separated. And we analyzed and tried to see maybe it means something else, and showed why it means these two things, as the Brisa had taught. Lasas means the paraduma, and lechaper means Yom Kippur. For those two, 7 days of separation is necessary, just as you did here. So shall you do. Hashem has commanded that you shall do to atone for them. However, Rabbi Yochanan says, no. There aren't two teachings in that pasuk. It's not telling you 2 times the Kohen Gadol needs to separate. It's a single time that the Kohen needs to separate, and that's on Yom Kippur. Rabbi Shua Levi Masni Tarti, it's Rabbi Shua Levi who says that there's actually 2 separations that the Torah is telling us. Rabbi Yochanan Masni Chadala says lechaper elamasi mikippurim. He says both to do, to atone, are both talking about the same thing. So as Hashem commanded, you shall do to atone for them, to do to atone. Meaning it's what you're going to do is atone, and only on Yom Kippur is the Torah saying the Kohen needs to separate for 7 days. Whereas Rabbi Shua Levi, a Masni Tarti, he says it's coming to teach 2 things, as we mentioned. That you shall do is Hashem commanded to do, to separate for something else that it had already commanded, meaning the paraduma. And to atone is the separation 7 days for the work, for the avodah of Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yochanan Maslichad. So the Gemara says, how can Rabbi Yochanan do that? But Rabbi Yochanan says that only for Yom Kippur you need separation 7 days. But we learned Shivas Yom Kippurim, 7 days before Yom Kippur, there's a separation, like our Mishnah, and also Shivas Yom Kippurim. We have another Mishnah that tells us that there's a separation 7 days for the Kohen before he does the paradu. So Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan holds that the 7 day separation that is done for the Kohen prior to the paradum, it's true, there is an obligation to do that, but that's a rabbinic enactment, not from the pasuk. And why did the Chachamim enact it? As you remember, we learned yesterday that the Chachamim, in order to teach the Tzedukim that they are wrong, that a Kohen, even if he's gone to the mikveh that day and the sun has not yet set, is kosher to do the service of the burning of the red heifer. So the Kohen, they would do that specifically. they would make the Kohen Tameh in the morning and have him go to the mikveh and then do the avodah. So this way he was actually a Tavul Yom, someone who's gone to mikveh that day. And in order to counterbalance the leniency or really, in a sense, a disregard for Tumah that the Chachamim were doing here, and making someone Tameh on the day that he's going to be doing the service of the Parah Aduma, they made additional strictures and for the Kohen doing the service. One, we saw that all the vessels being used that in that chamber were of non-susceptible to Tumah, and another that he has to separate for 7 days to keep himself from becoming Tameh, even though we're going to make him Tameh on the 7th day, and then he's going to do the service, but a way to increase the protection of the Kohen to show that we take Tumah very seriously. So we now have a machlekes. Rabbi Yochanan says that we only learn one thing, Yom Kippur, from the obligation that the Torah says that as you have done this day, so shall you do, to atone. That's all talk about Yom Kippur. And Rabbi Shuma Levi says, no, as we've learned, it means both. And it's a Torah obligation for the separation of Yom Kippur, of Parah Aduma, and it's a Torah obligation for the separation of Yom Kippur. Both of them are a Torah obligation. So, Rabbi Yumi bar Chilkiah amar Rabbi Chasya bar Rabbi Idi amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Gemara says it's not true because we have a statement that Rabbi Yumi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ka'asher asa b'yom hazeh tziv Hashem lasas l'chaper aleichem, that as you have done this day by the inauguration, by the Miluyim, it says that just as the Kohen and Aaron and his sons were separated into the Beis Hamikdash, into the Mishkan, so too shall you do lasas. Tziv Hashem lasas, Hashem commanded to do l'chaper aleichem, to atone for you. Lasas hela masa para, and there it says to do is for the Parah Aduma, the red heifer, l'chaper, and to atone hela masa mikipurim. This is the Yom Kippur service. So we see even Rabbi Yochanan himself says that that the pasuk obligates us in two things. So Gemara says, "Ahu the Rabbi," that's from his teacher Rabbi Yishmael. The Chiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael, in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, Lasa Seila Masapara, and when the Torah said, just as you've done at the Miluyim, at the inauguration, that the Kohanim was separated for 7 days, so shall you do. Lasais Elam Asapara. That's for the Parah Aduma. Lechaper, to atone Elam Asapara. So we see that's the opinion of his teacher Rabbi Yishmael. Now Tosfos points out, why would Rabbi Yishmael disagree with his own teacher? And can he? Is he even allowed to? Rabbi Yishmael is a Tana. Rabbi Yishmael is of the Mishnaic era, and Rabbi Yochanan is the beginning of the Gemara era. So can he even disagree? And the Gemara and Tosfos points out that from the fact that he quoted this in the name of Rabbi Yishmael is indicative of the fact that there are those that disagree, that the Chachamim, perhaps even the majority, disagreed with his teacher and said that no, there's only a single teaching from in the comparison. And Rabbi Yochanan is ruling with the majority, even against his own teacher. Amalei Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Rish Lakish challenged Rabbi Yochanan. Mehecha kanafkas, yalfas. Where are you learning this idea that you have to separate for the 7 days? You're learning it from Miluyim, from the inauguration of the Mishkan by the Miluyim, where for 7 days Aaron and his children moved into the Mishkan until Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when they would bring when they would inaugurate the Mishkan. Well, over there, everything it says, if you didn't do it as said, it invalidated. And if the Kohanim did not separate for 7 days, it would invalidate them. So too over here, let's say the same, that if you don't separate for 7 days, it invalidates the service. And if you're going to tell me, well, perhaps so. Perhaps if the Kohen is not separated for 7 days in advance of the Yom Kippur service, the service is invalid. But can't be, because we learned and that we prepare another Kohen for him. And as we mentioned in the Mishnah, that we prepare for him, meaning we designate someone and we measure out his clothing, so he has clothing that fits for him. But it doesn't say that second Kohen also is separated for 7 days in the Lishkas Palhedrim in the Hedron Bureau. It doesn't say that we separate him. Yes, Michael.
Could you remind me what was the teretz in Rabbi Chanina Sgan Kohanim? We had a Sgan. There's constant reference to the Sgan. Why do we have to? What
the Sgan being the deputy?
Like so if he's a Sgan, why do we have to name somebody? I mean, we got a Sgan. He's the Sgan. So what if something happened to him, the Sgan takes over? I mean, I was wondering this in Shkalim also, where we had the thing that the Tzibur's got to pay for it. Why didn't the Sgan just like step in? That's what a Sgan is, isn't it? There was a teretz there. I can't remember what it was.
The Sgan had a specific avoda, a specific job. It wasn't necessarily that he was it wasn't like the vice president, that if the president is incapacitated, then the vice president automatically becomes president. It's not, the Sgan is not necessarily that. Could be the one designated, but it isn't necessarily that. But indeed, the Sgan could be that designatee to be the one that's going to be the next. But the preparation is the Sgan having the proper fitting Yom Kippur Kohen Gadol clothing, whereas it doesn't say that he has to be separated. So we have someone that has that is prepared and designated as the replacement, and prepared in the sense of that he's designated and he has clothing fitting, because in order to do the service he needs that. But it doesn't say that he's separated for 7 days. So seemingly the avodah will be kosher even if he's not separated for 7 days. And if we're learning it from Miluim, there every part is going to invalidate it if it wasn't done exactly as prescribed. And over here, the prescription is to be separated for 7 days, and yet it'll be valid even if he wasn't. And if you can tell me, well, who told you? Maybe this that it says that we prepare him also means that he's separated. So then let it say the same wording. Either both of them, for both of them, we prepare, we set him up. Or both of them, we separate them. Why does it say we separate the Kohen Gadol and we set up the replacement? Amar lei. So Rabbi Yochanan responds to Rish Lakish, Elamar me'echa yalafla. So, well, if you're not going to agree, like our teacher Rabbi Yishmael and the teaching that we had, that from the verse, the pasuk that says by the inauguration, as you have done this day, so shall you do to atone. So as Hashem commanded to do to atone. So if you're not going to learn it from there, so where are you learning from? Elmar me'echa yalafla. Amar misinai. Says, I learn it from Har Sinai, from Sinai. The Sefer, it says, Vayishka kved Hashem al Har Sinai, as it says that Hashem brought down his honor onto the mountain. Vaychaseu anan sheishes yamim, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. Vayikra Moshe v'yem hashavi, and Hashem called Moshe on the 7th day. Mechti, Siv vayikra Moshe v'yem hashvi. It says that he called Moshe on the 7th day. Mai sheishes yamim. So why does it mention that it was there for 6 days? It just we know already. It says if it would have said, and the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day Hashem called Moshe. We know that the cloud covered the mountain for 6 days. Why does it mention specifically 6 days? Zebnei Av. This is to tell you a general rule. Shekol hanichnas b'machane shchina. Anyone going into Shechina's camp, meaning the Holy of Holies, which the equivalent of that was the Temple Mount, and the tablets in the Ark are like the tablets on the Temple Mount, and the Holy of Holies, going into the Holy of Holies, is like it's sending the Temple Mount. So going into Machane Shechina, the Kohen Gadol who goes in on Yom Kippur, just as Moshe went up on the mountain, there needs to be a 6 day separation. Ton, Parisha, Shisha. You need a 6 day separation. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Rish Lakish, that's nice, but we actually learned in the Mishnah you need a 7 day separation. V'ha'anan shiva tanan, not 6. So if you're learning it from Sinai, you actually don't have the same teaching. V'ha'anan shiva tanan. So he says, well, our Mishnah, Masisa Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseiri, our Mishnah added a day because to the 6th, because Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseiri was concerned about a tumah, the chayish, the tumas beisa. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseiri was concerned about the tumah that he may have at home if he is going to be home. And as we learned that the Kohen Gadol has to be married, so he may actually have a semen emission tumah, and therefore he needs to be separated a full 7 days so that he would have a full 7 days of tumah, which also wouldn't be, even though a semen emission needs a 1 day, it could be that he would have contract the nida tumah if he was with his wife when she was tummy, what nida. So he would have a 7-day tumah. So for that, we need him 7 days there to make sure that he is purified from that 7-day tumah. So now we're on Dalet Amud Aleph at the top. The tumas basic. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, l'Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, and he says it's great. You're learning it from Mount Sinai, from Har Sinai, when Moshe went up after the seventh day, after 6 days of separation, and you want to say that anybody going into the Machane Shechina or going to Kodesh HaKodashim would also need that. And I'm learning it from the Miluim, where it says specifically, as you have done on this day, you shall do to atone. So Bishlam Miluim. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, it makes sense according to me that we're learning it from the Miluim, from the inauguration. That's why it says that the Kohen of Yom Kippur, every single day of the 7 days, we would spritz on him the red heifer water to make sure that if he had come into contact with anybody that's tummy mace, that's dead, that he would if he himself was tummy mace, come into contact with the dead, we spritz on him every day. So this way, the 3rd and 7th day that are necessary are going to be done for him, and he's going to be purified for that. And the same for the kohen in preparation for the paraduma. He's going to be. We're going to spritz on him for 7 days. Mikol chater shayisham. And they used to do that from all the red heifer waters that were there. They would put a little bit into the ash, and then they would spritz it on him. The Havanami Hazab and Miluim, because at the inauguration also there was a spritzing of 7 days. And so just as at the inauguration, the Kohen who was separated living in the Beis HaMikdash in order to do the service of the 1 day of the inauguration of the Miluim would get spritzed on every single day to make sure he's not tummy mace. So too Yom Kippur, and so too the Paraduma, the Kohen doing the red heifer, the Paraduma. And even though that Rabbi Yochanan said that the Paraduma is not a Torah obligation, but still when the Chachamim enacted it, they enacted it in the same way as that separation. But according to you, that you're saying we're not learning it from the Miluim, from the inauguration, but rather you're learning it from Sinai when Moshe separated and then went to speak to hear Hashem and receive the Torah. Hazab Sinai mihavia. Was there such a spritzing of the red heifer to purify by Sinai? So we'll leave it at Rabbi Yochanan's question on Reish Lakish, and tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we will listen to Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish's response to Rabbi Yochanan. Yashakach, have a great